When I was quite young, probably third grade-ish, my parents and my grandparents took my older brother and I to a Philadelphia Phillies game at Old Veterans Stadium. Now, on this summer day, we emerged from the highest concourse in the upper deck and turned around to see that our seats were up at the very top of the stadium. This was very exciting for my brother and I, all the way at the top. But as I noticed as we climbed the stairs, they continued to grow steeper and steeper, and our pace of ascending got slower and slower. You see, my father and grandfather were not particularly good with heights. And my father in particular was actually downright not good with heights. And as if you've ever been to the upper level of a professional stadium, especially an older one like Veterans Stadium was, you know that at the top, the angle is such that if you would feel that if you stumbled, you wouldn't stop until you reached the field. You're looking straight down. So by the time we reached our seats, and we did, my dad was crawling on all fours, attempting to keep his composure as the game went along. The two of them sat very upright with their backs against the seats the entire game. When it came time for the seventh inning stretch, for snacks, or for the bathroom, my mom took us. I don't remember how we got out of the stadium, but I'm sure we were among the last to leave. One might question why a party with two gentlemen with a fear of heights would purchase such seats. And the answer is quite simple. They were $5 that day, and my dad told my mom to get the best deal she could find. I would guess that if they could have had a preview of the experience, the adult men in the family may not have attended, or at the very least would have shelled out a little bit money for lower seats. But then they would have missed out on all of the family memory making, and I wouldn't have this particular illustration for this sermon. God works all things to our good. One of Martin Luther King Jr.'s more famous quotes is, "Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase." And I would add that if you could see the whole staircase, you might not always have faith to walk up the steps. This is a really on-the-nose example to use, but I believe the sentiment carries through in many of our life situations that we find ourselves in throughout the journey of life. Sometimes it's a mercy that we don't see the whole journey that lies ahead of us. Think of all of the relationships we enter into, for instance, whether it's romantic partnerships, friendships, co-workers, anything that we find ourselves journeying with other people. They all, without exception, end with some kind of goodbye. If we could see the circumstances of that goodbye at the outset, we might be tempted not to invest ourselves quite as much. We might forego years of joys like companionship and love to save us the grief of someday. And that self-preserving decision-making would likely rob us of the blessings of the future as well. If I could have seen how the end of my relationship with my high school sweetheart would have turned out, I might not have thought it worth the trouble when we started dating to go through with it. But then I wouldn't have grown as a person and a potential partner. May not have matured into somebody who would have been a good match for Kelsey. One of the mercies of the road, I think, is that we cannot see the whole journey at the outset. And maybe that could be true for the Magi as well. Imagine their journey. Astrologers looking to the sky, interpreting the stars, noticing something new and notable in the rising of a new star. And when interpreting the importance of the star, the birth of a new king, they go straight to the top, to Herod, to find out more information. Scholars say that their journey may have taken anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 years to take. The story isn't particularly clear, but we do know that they arrive at a house and not at a manger, so it took them at least a little while. And above all, we know it's not a trip that they made lightly. If they had known that they were not looking for royalty of traditional circumstances. They went to Herod, remember? Would they have still made the trip, knowing that instead of a palace, they were going to arrive in a humble house somewhere? If they had known that their misinterpretation, I guess we'll call it for lack of a better word, would have gotten them tangled up with the ire of King Herod, would they have thought this kid, though important to some other religious tradition, not their own, would have been worth the trouble? Having embarked on their journey, though, step by step, they discovered joy and surprise and wonder that they may likely never have expected. Maybe not the royal that they thought they would meet, but still the very heavens led them to him. Not the God that they had ever worshipped before, and yet a child in whose presence the divine energy was undeniable, and they pay him homage. Perhaps with presents that seemed out of place. Perhaps some diapers would have been more appropriate and helpful for Mary and Joseph. And yet gifts that we still talk about millennia later. A lifetime of charting courses and mapping the stars only to follow the directions of a dream to be kept safe on the way home. The journey of life and with God is inherently mysterious, especially because, I believe, that many of life's most valuable lessons and deepest meanings are found in the utterly unexpected. And I believe that God delights in making what we think is impossible very real indeed. Just as we talked about the unlikelihood of the shepherds being the first to pay homage to God's Son, from the other side of unlikely come these exotic mystics, not even in the right religious tradition, who somehow find their way to meet Jesus and be transformed. A journey in various levels of unlikely that we all find ourselves on. So perhaps you are on some journey, some kind of journey right now. I suppose we all are. That is filled with twists and turns that you never could have seen coming. Maybe you're in a place that you would not have chosen to journey towards. You are not alone. Keep taking that next step in faith. Crawl up those stairs if you need to. And pay attention. You might just meet Jesus in that unlikely place and be transformed forever. A blessing for those who have far to travel. If you could see the journey whole, you might never undertake it, might never dare the first step that propels you from the place that you have known toward the place that you know not. Call it one of the mercies of the road, that we only see it in stages as it opens up before us, as it comes into our keeping, step by single step. There is nothing for it but to go, and by our going, take the vows that the pilgrim takes, to be faithful to the next step, to rely on more than just the map, to heed the signposts of intuition and dream, to follow the star that only you will recognize, to keep an open eye for the wonders that attend the path, to press on beyond distractions, beyond fatigue, beyond what would tempt you from the way. There are vows that only you will know, the secret promises in your particular path, and the new ones that you will need to make when the road is revealed by turns you could not have foreseen. Keep them, break them, make them again. Each promise becomes part of the path. Each choice creates the road that will take you to the place where at last you will meet him, and you will kneel to offer the gift most needed, the gift that only you can give, before turning to go home transformed by another way. Let us pray. Gracious One, we give you thanks that you are with us even when we don't know the next few steps in our journey, let alone the entirety of the path that we are on. God, so many unexpected twists and turns have brought us to this moment, to where we are. And as we look around and as we experience your presence through our prayer and our worship, through communion today, we acknowledge that you are good and that there are good things about this place and this moment, that there are deep joys that perhaps we thought unimaginable in years prior and experience as we've gone through the experiences of life. God, things that we may not, mountains that we may not have chosen to ascend if it were up to us. And yet on the journey, you and this community of faith in your presence have helped lead us through and over. Gracious God, for these mysteries and mercies of the road, we give you thanks, as in some way we all are on the journey of the Magi, finding our way in the most unlikely of places and spaces and ways to you. May your divine presence speak to us, transform us, and lead us to pay you homage as well, that we may not leave from your presence without the transforming power of your love in our hearts and our souls. Gracious God, be with us wherever we are on this journey, whether we still feel far off, whether we feel like we've arrived, or somewhere in between. Gracious God, all of this we ask in the name of your Son, Jesus, through the power of your Holy